G'day gamers, Ranger Tony here with another Pathfinder Kingmaker build video. Today I'm going to show a build which is a little bit confusing, the Aldori Defender. Now, there's a few elements about this that make it a very confusing build. Hopefully you'll understand those by the end of this. This is by no means the only way to build it, but I feel it's the way that it was intended to be built. Let's look at races first. You can see I've already gone a little bit into the build here. So what races are going to be good for an Aldori Defender? Humans, they're good for pretty well everything. +2 to any one ability is a great thing. Extra feet, extra skill. My default, if I'm going to try out a character, is human. Elves aren't going to be too bad, but the game itself does recommend Constitution as useful for the Aldori Defender, so that penalty to Constitution is probably going to be a little bit annoying. Spend a couple of points in that. The intelligence is actually a good thing. I'll point out this in a minute. And the dex, of course, is good because this is going to be a dex-based build. You can do a strength-based build for this character, but hopefully you'll see by the end why that's not a good idea, because there are so many things that you need to get for this character, or abilities that the character has, that really do rely on a high dex. And then by the end of this, you're going to have a very good armor class with minimal armor. So in light armor, you're going to have a really good armor class with this. Dwarf, they're okay. Charisma doesn't hurt you at all to have that penalty. The Constitution is nice. You don't need the extra wisdom, and none of their racial traits really stand out as being super great. The defensive training against giants, anything defensive will make you last longer, and there are a lot of giants in this game, so that will be good. Normally for gnomes and halflings, I say that they're really not much good for anything but spellcasters, because you do less damage with regular weapons, but because this weapon that you're going to be using, the dueling sword, is a medium weapon doing 1d8 of damage, when it comes back to being used by the smaller races, it's going to be doing 1d6, and that's not actually a bad thing, because it's one of the few weapons that is finessable. Actually, it's the only weapon that is initially finessable with doing 1d8 of damage. The default weapon that you normally get if you are using a finessable weapon is the rapier, which only does 1d6, and you can also use the scimitar if you take the slash and grace feat. You can also use longsword as well if you take slash and grace, but yeah, out of the box you can use the dueling sword with weapon finesse without any modifications at all. And so then if the halfling or the gnome take this class and use the dueling sword, they are going to still do 1d6 of damage, which is comparable to the rapier or scimitar in a medium-sized character's hands. So it's not too bad. You're not too much of a problem there. And the Constitution bonus that you get as a gnome and the dex bonus that you get as a halfling are both really nice. The strength penalties that you get do hurt a little bit, but if you're willing to just bring that back to 10 by throwing a couple of points in it, it's not going to be really all that bad for you. So I don't really have a problem using those races. Half elf and half orc are, half human, so they get the +2 to 1 ability score. Half elves get their adaptability so that they can get a skill focus in one skill. Half orcs get 1 extra skill per level. Either of those would be fine as an Aldori. And then with Aasimar, if you want to play an Aasimar, you will definitely be able to find a heritage that works well for the ability points that you want, and you'll get some extra perks as well. But because of all round, I'm going to go with human. +2 to 1 ability score. The extra feat, the extra skill works really good out of the bat. If you take this, you can start with +7 to hit and an armor class of 20, which, short of, say, a tower shield specialist, you're not going to see an armor class of 20 very often on a first level character. So let's just go straight through to the build, and we'll pick the class as Aldori Defender, and let's just read the description. So the Aldori Swordlords of Brevoy are among the deadliest and most feared fighters of the Inner Sea. They have spent long years mastering the Aldori dueling sword, pitting themselves against other dueling swords and all manners of weaponry besides. Their speed and reflexes weave a net of impenetrable steel around them, and from which they strike and harry their unfortunate opponents. The most common form of Aldori dueling, and arguably the easiest of the techniques to master, focus on avoiding damage and disarming foes. These swordlords prefer to wear light or no armor, trusting their skill for protection. So first of all, that suggests that there are multiple different types of Aldori dueling available, and that this class is focusing on the defensive side, which evolves around avoiding your opponents, wearing light armor, and disarming them. Okay, so that's confusing, because the very first feat proficiencies that you get are all martial weapons and all armor, including all shields, including the tower shield. So that's conflicting, because at no point in the game does it force you to wear light armor. Okay? Secondly, it talks about disarming your foes, but at no point when you review all of this do you get the disarming ability. You have to get that yourself. Okay? And you might think, oh, I don't have to get it. You'll see in a minute that you do have to get it. So let's just really quickly go through all of this. This here is just your standard proficiencies. You get one fighter bonus proficiency at each of these levels. You also get weapon proficiency with the dueling sword, which normally you would need the exotic weapon proficiency to get. So you get that without having to get exotic. What else do we get? Well, we get bravery. So you get a +1 bonus to will saves, and that increases over the levels, so it's +2, 3, 4, and 5. Now you start getting the good stuff. So at level 3, you get defensive parry. So if you make a full attack, you gain a +1 with the dueling sword. So you have to be using the dueling sword for this. You gain a +1 bonus to your armor class against melee attacks until the beginning of next turn, and that increases every third level. So +1, +2, +3, +4, +5, and eventually +6. So you need to be using the dueling sword for that. Then down here, there's all of these weapon training feats. So you get, what is that, 7 of them all up, and they just allow you to get bonuses with particular weapons. Up here, you get the feat that most fighter types get, which is at level 20, you can pick one weapon, and you will always confirm critical hits with that. And your critical hit damage multiplier increases by 1. So that's a pretty standard 20th level ability. The other few abilities we get down here, at level 6 you get disarming strike. So if you disarm someone with the dueling sword, you also deal normal damage. So that's the thing that is not really obvious in the disarm feat itself, is that when you do a disarm, you don't do any damage if it's successful. All you do is disarm them. So at level 6, if you're doing disarm, you can also damage them at the same time, which is handy. So at level 6, you can just turn that ability on always, and every single attack you do will try and disarm and do damage at the same time. Very, very handy. Then you get Steel Net at level 7. So when using a dueling sword and when fighting in defensive mode, you get the penalties on defensive mode fighting are reduced by 2 for your attacks, and your dodge and armor class is increased by an extra 2 over what defensive fighting normally gives you. So that's really good. You get that at level 8, and then at level 10 you get counterattack. So this says level 11th, but it says here level 10, so that's another thing that's conflicting. You can make an attack of opportunity as an immediate action against an opponent who hits you with a melee attack, as long as they are within reach. So if someone attacks you and actually hits you, you can immediately riposte basically and attack back. And then at level 19 you get some damage reduction, which is handy as well. But as you can see, we've got a few abilities here, 3 of them that actually require you to be using the dueling sword. So even if you thought, oh, I'm going to be an Aldori Defender and I want to use a battle axe, well, sure, you can do it, but you're not going to get the most out of it because there's a whole bunch of bonuses there, and this one, that you're not going to be able to get if you're using something else. So really, this is built around the dueling sword. Why is it dex based? That comes into the skills that you don't get given. So let's go and do the actual build now of ability points. I'm going to leave my strength at 10. You don't need strength for this build. It's nice early game to give you some extra damage, but I'm going to show you a build where you don't need it at all. So let's just give our racial bonus to dex, and we're going to max it out. So we're going to go to 20, which gives us a nice +5. And we don't have a lot of points left, but we need 13 in intelligence so we can get disarm, and its prerequisites. And then the rest of the points we're going to chuck into constitution. So we're going to start with 13 hit points, which is nice. We actually start with an extra hit point there, so normally it would be 12 per level, and one extra is 13, so that's really nice. Skills, this is not a skill-based class, so you can pick any of these skills that you want. I'm just going to pick the preferred one so we can go on and see what we need to do next. Okay, this is always a little bugged for me. It always shows point blank shot as a feat that's recommended, which of course it isn't in this case. And we've got to remember we get these feats up here as well. So at first level we get 1, 2, 3 feats that we can take. We're going to get another one at second, we're going to get another one at third, we're going to get another one at fourth, we're going to get another one at fifth. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 feats before we get to this disarm. So how can you do this build? Well, you're going to want weapon finesse, okay, because, well, you might think I don't need weapon finesse because none of these skills talk about weapon finesse, and you're right, they don't. Let's take weapon focus first in the dueling sword, which isn't required for any of these special abilities. But if we take weapon focus and then we also take weapon finesse, it opens up this wonderful skill here called Aldori Dueling Mastery. So you have to have a dexterity of 13, which we've got. You've got to have weapon finesse, which we've got. And you've got to have a proficiency and a weapon focus in the dueling sword, which we now have. So what does this give you? It gives you a +2 bonus to your initiative checks. Okay, as long as you start combat with the dueling sword. Now you're not going to change from this. You're going to use the dueling sword for everything. Okay, but as long as you do that, that's fine. As long as you wield only a single dueling sword in one hand, so as long as you're not using a shield and you're not wielding 2 weapons, you can gain a +2 bonus to your armor class. Okay, so basically you use your sword like a shield. Okay, and you can also treat the dueling sword as a piercing weapon for any of the effects used by a duelist. Now that is not really useful for this class at all, but if you want to later on go to the prestige class of duelist, then this makes a really good start for that. But even without that in there, the +2 bonus to initiative and the +2 bonus to your armor class when using the dueling sword is really, really handy. Because remember, you're also getting a bonus to your armor class here at level 3 onwards, and then you've got this defensive net that you can throw up as well. So if you turn on defensive mode, you're going to get another 2 bonus to your armor class as well. So by the end of the game, in light or no armor, you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus the 2 from Aldori Mastery is 8 armor class bonus, plus your dexterity bonus, which at the moment is 5, so that's 13. Yeah, you're going to have a pretty high armor class no matter what you do, and that's without wearing any armor at all. And a lot of these are bonuses that would apply on top of the armor that you've already got they're not going to be hampered by whatever armor you're using. So yes, you could use heavy armor. There's nothing that's going to stop you from doing that. There's nothing in any of these that says you have to be using light armor. But if you take all of this, there's no point in using heavy armor. And with your strength only being 10, heavy armor is going to slow you down. You're not going to be able to carry anywhere near as much. So my recommendation is don't use the heavy armor. Go this way. Now, that gets you to first level. Second level, what are you going to take? Well, you're going to take Slash and Grace here, because that, with Weapon Finesse and Weapon Focus in a one-handed slashing weapon, right, will mean that you can use your Dexterity modifier instead of your Strength modifier for your weapon damage. So at second level, when you take that, suddenly you're going to be doing +5 to damage, because that's your Dex bonus. Okay? So that's going to be really good. You could swap Slash and Grace and the Dueling Mastery if you want at first level. So take Slash and Grace at first level and take a Aldori Dueling Mastery at second level. Entirely up to you. If you wanted to do that little bit more damage to begin with. But I think the defense early on, the very first chapter is the tutorial mission before you get to level 2 is fairly easy. Either way, you'll survive quite well. But those combinations will do you well. What should you do beyond that? So level 3, you've got one ability. Level 4, you've got one ability. And then level 5, you've got one ability. Well, level 3 is the interesting one, because there's a few different things that you could take. I would normally take Improved Initiative, and that's probably still a good time to take it, because you're going to get an extra 4 bonus to your initiative checks. You're already getting a +2 bonus to your initiative checks from the Aldori Dueling Mastery, so you're now going to have a +6 bonus to your initiative, and I believe initiative is based on dexterity, so you're already got a very high dexterity, and you're adding an extra 6 bonus with that onto it. You're always going to attack first, which would be really good. Ultimately, at level 4 and level 5, or you can do these earlier, you're going to want to take Combat Expertise, because you need an Intelligence of 13 for that. You probably won't want to use it, but if you do, you get an extra dodge bonus to your armor class when you turn it on at a -1 penalty to your attack rolls. And then once your base attack bonus reaches +4, the penalty and the dodge bonus increase even further. So if you turn on Combat Expertise, you're going to be even harder to hit. You're not going to hit quite as often, but you're really going to be very, very tanky at that point. Even if you don't turn it on, though, it is the prerequisite for Disarm. So my recommendation is to take Improved Initiative at level 3, Combat Expertise at level 4, and then Disarm at level 5, ready so that when you get to level 6, you can be doing Disarm that also does damage, and you're set to go. What do you take beyond that is really up to you. You want to be able to get the Improved Critical feat, which requires, which we can't see yet because we don't have the required base attack bonus, but Improved Critical is what you're going to want. Beyond that, you want to be able to increase your critical hits as soon as you can. Once your base attack bonus is at 8, which I think will be around level 7 or 8, you will be able to take Improved Critical. And then any of the other critical skills after that would be useful to take. There's a bunch of skills around criticals that do various other effects when you score critical hits. So for example, there is the blinding critical, so that when you do a crit, the opponent is permanently blinded unless they make a save. Any of those, and then once you get at least one of those and you're up around level 14 or 15, I think it is, you can get Critical Mastery, which which allows you to improve the damage dealt by one of these critical feats, or you can also get critical focus. You need to get critical focus first as well. So critical focus gives you a +4 bonus to the confirmation of the critical roll. Now, if you don't know the way crits work, and I'm actually going to do a video on weapon selection, and I'll talk a little bit about crits there as well, but the way crits work is when you roll the critical value for a weapon, which is 20 on most weapons. Some weapons you can roll a 19 or a 20, and a very few weapons you can roll 18, 19, or 20. When you roll that crit value on an attack roll, you then roll again to confirm that that critical hit was actually critical. So basically the first roll says, oh, look, I got a 20, therefore this is definitely a critical hit. Let's ignore the fact that that 20 may or may not have actually hit with whatever attack bonuses you've got, may or may not have actually hit your opponent. Now let's roll to hit the opponent, and so you roll again. Critical focus gives you a bonus to that so that you're more likely on that second roll to actually hit. And so yeah, that's how that works. And then once you've done that critical hit, you can roll damage, and then you add the multiplier on. So you really want to get criticals, anything you can do to improve your criticals as soon as you can. The only other thing I would recommend looking into for this build is power attack and cleave. Now, power attack, we've actually got, oh no, sorry, power attack was there, wasn't it? There it is. Power attack is not all that useful to you. It gives you a -1 penalty to your attack rolls, but gives you a +2 bonus to your damage rolls. So it's not that great, but you know, it is quite good. But it's a prerequisite for cleave, and what cleave does is basically just say if you attack and successfully hit an opponent, you get a free attack. You can make a single attack at your full attack bonus against a foe within reach. If you hit, you deal damage normally, and you can make an additional attack against a foe that is adjacent to the first one and also within reach. So you're not attacking that opponent, but you're attacking another one. And then there are some other things around cleave that you can then get, but you need to have a strength of 13. So this build it's not going to work on. But if you wanted to change my build slightly so that you at least had 13 in strength, which would bring your armor class down a little bit because your dex wouldn't be as high, you've only got to put those 3 extra points into it, or I think it's probably going to cost you 4 points to get to 13. But once you've got a strength of 13, you could use your cleaves. That would mean that you're getting more attacks. There are some extra cleaving ones. There's greater cleave, which after that, if that first hits and you get to hit another opponent, if that one hits, then you get to hit a third opponent, and you just keep going. But you can't hit any opponent more than once. But if you're surrounded, you can just basically hit them all. If all of your hits work, of course. And then cleaving finish is one that if you've done a cleave and if you've hit an opponent and killed them, you get a free hit at another opponent as well. So yeah, that sort of stuff helps you, but really this is a crit-based build, and that's where you need to go. So hopefully I've explained enough around that. What I'm really quickly going to do is I'm just going to put a junk name in here and quickly pick this, and we'll go through, and I'm just going to really super quickly get through the intro of the game so I can show you that you start with some really good stats from this build. Sure, if you were wielding a shield with medium armor, you'd probably have better armor class than this, but for a character that is a dex-based build with light armor, starting with this good an armor class is and with this good of an attack bonus is pretty impressive. About the only thing you don't have is you're not doing quite as much damage until next level when you take... actually, I can just do that. So yeah, you're not going to do as much damage, but that isn't going to last for long. So let's just skip this and that and that. So let's have a look. An attack bonus of 7. which is a result of our base attack bonus of 1, +5 from our dexterity, and +1 from the weapon focus on our dueling sword. And our armor class in armor is 20, which is pretty good. It's pretty amazing, actually. So you have your base armor of 10, +5 from the dexterity, another 3 from the studded leather that we're wearing, and because we've got the dueling sword as our primary weapon, we get a +2 Aldori dueling mastery bonus. Remember, we're also going to get a bonus to our initiative from that skill as well, and once we take improved initiative, there's not going to be anything that is going to be attacking before us unless we just have a super bad roll, because we're going to have a +6 before our dexterity bonus to any rolls that we do. So we're probably going to have like a +11 to initiative, and that's going to be pretty awesome. So that's my recommendation for the Aldori Defender. I hope it's cleared up some of the confusing parts of the build. You don't have to wear light armor. You can wear heavy armor, but you're not going to get any advantage of it based on the dex that you're using, and you don't have enough strength. You could go with a strength build, but if you don't have at least 13 in your dexterity, you're not going to be able to get some of these abilities like Aldori Defender. So I believe this is the build that is sort of recommended for the Aldori. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. If you have other variations of the Aldori Defender build that you use and you like and you want to share them, put them in the comments below. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.